Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Real Life Real Tarot. And today I'm going to take a break from case scenarios to look at how I do 5 card tarot readings. Yeah, look, I've been doing 5 card tarot readings for a while, and there's a lot of pros and cons to doing them, which is why I tend to do them often. More pros than cons, to be honest with you. Um, So, and the reason why I thought I'd do this video is because some of you are out there are also practicing tarot, and I thought, you know what, why don't I share some of my tips with you to make the most out of your tarot readings? Now, obviously, this isn't every one of my tricks. I would like to keep some up my sleeve for when people come to me, but I figured this might help some of your practice as well. So, we're gonna do it by looking at a scenario. Now, what are the benefits of 5 card tarot readings? 5 card readings give you a bit more information than just 3 cards. I can glean quite a bit from 3, but really sometimes if I want to figure out, pros and cons and so on, having 5 can give me a little bit more. So generally speaking, you can get a lot of with 2 or 4. Well, the more cards you put on, the more information you can get. There's also a risk that the more confusing it can get, because now you've got a lot of information to work with, a lot of relationships between cards that you have to work with as well. 5 cards tend to cover most scenarios and situations without going into a massively deep dive. A 5 card reading can go for about 20 minutes to about half an hour. So it's ideal for a lot of scenarios where you don't want to spend a lot of time on a reading. Another benefit is, like, if you've been asked a yes or no question, the pros and cons, having an odd number, 3, 5s, and so on, can give you an indication as to which way the scales are balancing in favor of. So if I had 4 or 2, it's almost a 50-50 chance, and that's not really ideal when you've got a yes or no question. You kind of want to see whether you've got 3 in favor versus 2 against, and so on. And so having 5 can be really ideal for that. So those are 2 main reasons why, it allows for a reading that's concise without being too confusing. If you don't want a reading that's a deep dive, not all questions require a deep dive into a particular issue, this is ideal. If you don't want to spend more than 20 minutes on a client or on a question, this is ideal. If you need to know a yes or an answer, like a yes or no, or a decision, information to make a decision, a 5 card reading is perfect for that. I kind of find 3 cards leave a lot wanting. And I generally don't do a lot of 3 card readings. To me, I kind of feel like you're cheaping out. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of skilled tarot card readers out there that can glean a lot of information with just 3 cards, and I respect that. I don't believe I'm at that level yet, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm some tarot card master. So, with that being said, let's have a look at how I read 5 card spreads. Whoops, I got too excited there. Okay, so the question we're going to work with today is, my daughter is marrying someone I don't trust. Should I tell her? Now, this is an interesting question. I won't give too much info about the full scenario. Sometimes you get a client that just gives you that much to go with, either because, they just don't want to share more with that, because they might feel like you're leading them. Fair enough. They must be a skeptic, but, that's what you've got. So it's an interesting question, because it sounds like, if you tell them, you risk jeopardizing your friendship or relationship with them. You risk an argument, depending on how close it is to the wedding or the engagement or whatever else. But it also makes it quite real. Now there's something that you have to bear. If there's no reason for you not to trust them, now you look like the crazy person. so I can understand the validity of the question. So, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. This is not a real question, by the way. This is one I found thanks to AI. Quick camera check to see if the cards are in frame. And they are a little bit. Yeah. Okay, that will do. Now, you might be wondering why I don't put them all like so. This is just my personal preference. It's visual interest. This to me just looks a little bit boring to look at. So I put it a little bit off kilter just to make it more interesting. There's no real significance. I feel like that's generally the nature with spreads, and it allows for you to show some visual interest in, yeah, pretty much. It looks more mystical, and patterns can sometimes help a person organize information. So, this is how I lay out a 5-card spread. Now, the first thing I do, first technique, is go card by card. My daughter is marrying someone I don't trust. Should I tell her? Each card answers the question, provides a little bit of information that helps inform the decision. That is the first technique. So let's have a look. 5 of Pentacles. We see a woman that looks apparently destitute. She's carrying a child, and she's basically in the middle of the night. She's walking around. A dark, shadowy figure is behind her, and this card often depicts the idea of destitution. You take a risk, you flee, you move forward, but that risk comes with that sense that your finances will be unstable. Pentacles and coins generally have to do with the idea of structure, family, and stability. More, I guess, the stability aspect of the family rather than the emotional aspect of a family. That would be cups otherwise. And what I'm seeing here is that sense of instability that comes with the idea of breaking your silence and actually disclosing to your daughter that you don't trust her partner, her fiance, whatever. Okay. We then have the Queen of Coins. The Queen of Coins is a leader, a matriarch, someone who values finances. We're seeing an aspect of wealth. We're seeing someone who is in a position of power, and is a very wealthy woman. She prefers comfort. She prefers basically she holds the finances and the access to those finances. It is likely a querent is a person of wealth. It is likely that, given now there are 2 coins, 2 pentacles in play, it's likely that there is money is is an aspect. The partner who she doesn't trust now marrying to the family means that there is an issue. Her fear might be that her wealth might be at stake. Okay. We then have Death reversed. So, should I tell her? What does the Death card say? The Death card talks about change. It talks about transformation and evolution, and the idea of basically moving on. Starting a new chapter in a person's life. Reverse can suggest a person being stuck in their ways, unwilling to change and unwilling to actually accept this new transformation of the family unit, of circumstances as it is. And what I think it suggests from this reading, or at least what I'm seeing, is that our querent may be resistant to change. They may be unwilling to accept that the family unit as they perceive it is now going to incorporate someone new. And so, is this a positive or negative? In my view, death theme cards like Temperance and Death, when they're up right side up, it's actually a good thing. When they're reversed, it kind of suggests that something is out of balance, out of sorts, and not really a situation that we want. So I kind of think that this is a con. It kind of says that the issue is actually in our querent's head, and that they may be unwilling to accept the family member. We then move on to the card Temperance. Temperance is a card of moderation. It's a card of harmony. It's a card of blending, where a person is, meant to incorporate, two conflicting points of view and find a middle ground and a middle path. And when this card is reversed, it can suggest that the issue might be inside our person's head yet again. There is an unwillingness to find common ground, an unwillingness to compromise or even understand. Because temperance has an element of wisdom and understanding in it as well, through seeing differing points of view. And what I think this card is suggesting is that a querent needs to actually see her partner's side of you, her daughter's side of you, and likely connect and get to know her future son-in-law on a much deeper level before making a final decision. We see another queen reversed. Queen of Wands is a seductive, intelligent, charming woman, someone who is leads through spirituality, leads through faith, leads through vision and values. And when it's reversed, it can suggest a narcissistic person. It can suggest someone who is manipulative, often actually petty as well. And this can suggest that the querent might be the person who needs to be a little bit more open-minded. And it's likely that the tarot is what is basically saying is that this issue may be more to do with our querent than with the actual, the fiance being a problematic person. Now, how I tell all of this to the querent is a whole different video and a whole different thing. I have been known for being brutally honest in my readings. But what I think the summary is that all of these cards are suggesting that the issues lie with the way the querent sees the fiance, not with the fiance is himself. So, what is the advice given? Now, I could present all of that and trust that the querent's going to make their own decision, but I would probably go a next step. The querent has asked a question, yes or no, and I should give an answer. But before I do, I'm going to go through another few techniques. We've done card by card. Let's look at friends and enemies. Friends and enemies is a technique created, I think, by Dusty White, and you can read about it in his book, The Easiest Way to Read the Tarot Ever. I'll put a link in the bio because I highly recommend it. It's where I got a lot of my techniques, and it has helped me improve my tarot reading dramatically. Friends and enemies is a technique where it looks at cards as pairings, as friends and enemies based on their meanings, to see whether there is a pattern that's reinforcing them. Are these two friends? No. These two are actually fighting each other. We see a woman of wealth and status and prestige in a comfortable situation. We see a destitute woman here. These two would not be friends. What I would say is that this person is typically meant to be someone that provides comfort and compassion to this person. But generally speaking, no. Are these two friends? Potentially. Queen of Wands, Pentacles can be the slowest sign. Death reverse can be someone who is, resisting change. And these two can reinforce that idea that they might be set in their ways. So there's that perspective. Temperance reversed and death reversed, friends. Yes, potentially quite so. Just as these two cards will be friends, right side up. Death reversed is a card. Tends to mean someone resisting change and evolution. Temperance tends to be someone resisting the idea of moderation, harmony, and moving forward through a balancing of opposites. This is someone who's set in their ways and enjoying the extremes. I would say these two cards match. These two cards match as well. The idea basically of someone petty and vindictive, a narcissistic person who's self-absorbed, being unable to see the other side and see the other people's perspectives. These two reinforce each other. All in all, I would kind of say is that these four tend to, because of their positioning, could be people that hang out, particularly these three, but only because this one is a pentacle and therefore someone that's stubborn. I won't say this one because it's a 5. 5s are odd numbers. You're constantly moving, you're constantly restless and wanting change. But yeah, so we look at friends and enemies to see whether the cards reinforce each other's meanings in some way. And that can indicate whether there's a repeating message that is coming through all the cards. Technique number 2. Now let's move on to technique number 3, which is the elements. Elements can tell us whether this is more an emotional situation, a money situation, of ideas and decisions, and an ideology-based situation, or values. Earth, death, as a major arcana card, generally is found in Capricorn, and I would say that is Earth. Temperance, I cannot remember whether temperance is water or land or both. Comment below if you can remember in this video. I would appreciate it. And then we have fire here. This spread overwhelmingly is in favor of Earth, and it seems to me that the theme of protecting the the family fortune, or the family itself is, coming through quite strong. We're seeing a matriarch who is, possessed with the idea that they need to protect the family fortune and guard against, people who would come in who she doesn't deem fit. I suspect that this is not just a conflict. I think this card suggests that this person, the fiancé, our querent sees them as someone who is coming in to advance their fortune by marrying into the family, and she's not having it. A querent is not having that. So this is something that happens often when you use multiple techniques, is that you do end up revising meanings of cards, which then seem to marry the narrative that you're seeing all the way through. So that's elements. We see that there's a bulk of earth cards or earth theme cards, and that can tell us that where the issue may lie, predominantly in the earth, as in the earth aspect of relationship, which is fortunes and family. If there's a lot of air, it could just be ideology. Maybe our querent doesn't agree because she's a low-key racist, or, she just doesn't like blacks. Who knows? She doesn't like poor people. Could be something like that. So it's ideology-based. But this is Earth, Pentacles. What else? Numbers. So technique number 4. 5. Queen. What is Queen? So we have Ace to 10. Pages would be 11. Knights would be 12, and then queens would be 13. 5, 13, 13. What is temperance? 14. 14. and then 13. So, what can numbers tell us about a reading in a 5 card? Well, about a situation of 5 card reading. It can tell us that feelings or intensity of an issue grows rather than diminishes if the numbers increase. If the numbers decrease, it can tell us that the passion, the intensity decreases as well. Like it will diminish in time and the feelings may not be there. The issue may not be there. These numbers go from 5 to 13 to 14 to 13. So it kind of tells us that this issue intensifies unless a querent decides to actively resolve it. So, yeah, if they do nothing, it would likely increase. Yeah, and they need to actually think about that. Then we have the reversals. Too many reversals can suggest a no in favor of a yes. If they were all upright, a majority upright, it would say that things are favorable, and I would say that the answer was a yes. This isn't always hard and fast. Sometimes reversals can indicate a lessening of bad things. In this case, I do not believe it does. So the question was, should I tell my daughter that I don't trust her fiance? I would say the answer is no, because there are 3 reverse cards and 2 in favor. A lot of this reading tells me that the issue lies within her head, our querent's head, and she actually needs to go away and actually rethink, or he needs to rethink where this issue is coming from and actually do a little bit of soul searching to figure out how to address it without actually, having to disclose it. This person, I do not get the sense that this person marrying into the family is a problematic character. So then the issue lies with how person actually, doing something about that. All right. Finally, blending. So another technique that I read about in Dusty White's book, the easiest way to learn the tarot, or read the tarot ever. Blending involves actually marrying 2 cards together to give almost as if they were one picture between. Yeah, they were one picture. What do we see here? So if I put these cards away, if I had to actually say, make up a meaning based on these 2 cards merged together, I would say this is an act of charity, but she's giving, looking or facing away. So, so this comes to another technique called directionality. I'll worry about that later. But I would say this is someone who decides to give her money elsewhere and not let the person in. So, what else can I say? Oops. Okay. With blending, it definitely helps to actually put the cards side by side. Blending typically is done with cards right side up. And what I can sort of see here is that someone who wants to invest in other things, who wants to move away. Actually, I should probably do this for blending because it does make it easier. It can be more challenging to blending of all 5 cards. I rarely ever do that. But what I can sort of see here is if this is our querent, she is moving away and looking away from this person, and she would rather spend money on basically preserving her family, preserving things as they are, rather than actually, accepting and, new people into the family. What does this say about this combination of 2 cards? Tells us about someone who is indulgent, someone who spends more time, who's happy to stew in their passion and intense emotions or intense ideological views than keeping an open mind. These 2 cards, if blended, kind of tell me that this is something this kind of feels like a horror, like a fallen angel and then a death reverse kind of tells me that someone who is bogged down and really stuck in their ways. So the act of blending can sometimes help us figure out what's going on. It can give us hidden meanings that don't become apparent. And the best way to do that is to see them all in one continuous picture. Best done with two. You can expand it to three, but that does require a little bit of practice. So, finally, the recap. There was a lot of information shared, but I think the conclusion I would come to is: should you tell her? Should you tell your daughter that you don't trust her fiance? The answer is no. I genuinely believe that this issue lies within our querent's head and their views and their desire to protect the family's fortune and wealth, as well as their status. And doing so does not do a good service to her daughter or the relationship between our querent and their daughter. So my advice would be to the querent is that they may want to consider where this stubbornness and this lack of trust is coming from, and perhaps make a more concerted effort to get to know the fiance before actually passing judgment. It looks like the daughter is going to marry and be happy. So at the risk of losing your daughter, I would, yeah, do not do it because you risk losing your daughter. That would be my final response. So anyway, that's how I do 5-card readings. If you have any tips and suggestions on how you do it and ideas, I welcome your feedback because I'm most curious as to how other people do it. Yeah. So thank you very much for reading along with me. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.